Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Convicts and Cops. The historical connection between the Mexican Mafia and Aryan Brotherhood originated inside the California prison system shortly after the AB formed in San Quentin in about 1968. I describe this relationship as an alliance of convenience rather than one of necessity. Looking back, I can tell you that the AB didn't need us, nor did we need them, to blaze our trails inside the California prison badlands. Before we dive into this episode, let's defer to our sponsor for a quick and relevant word from Proverbs 13:20. Whoever walks with the wise becomes wise, but the companion of fools will suffer harm. Looks like this verse might just apply to the episode about choosing one's nefarious company. During the early turbulent years, we're talking late 1960s through the 70s, there was a ton of action taking place behind bars. Racial and prison gang strife was rampant inside the lockup units. B section and the adjustment center at San Quentin, the 4A Adjustment Center at Old Folsom, K-Wing Segregation Unit at DVI, and the O-Wing Adjustment Center at Soledad. Even Chino and Vacaville, they had their long-term lockup units, but the first four were the highest security prisons back then, and I hit them all between 1967 and 1975 as a youth offender and as an adult convicted felon. The EME was by far the most active of the Mexican prison gangs, and the same was true of our AB counterparts representing the white convict population. The EME and the brand provided mutual logistical support for each other. Not only did we share our resources, but we also shared common enemies, the Black Guerrilla family and the Nuestra Familia prison gang. People who cry out, accusing La M of riding with the whites for engaging in a similar hookup, they do not understand how this was simply jailhouse gang politics, nothing more. Prison gang politics had absolutely zero to do with ethnic allegiance or cultural pride. Think about it. If we all toed the line when it came to racial loyalty, there wouldn't be Mexicans killing Mexicans or blacks killing fellow blacks. We were killing our own kind in record numbers. Everybody wanted to be a gangster, dope dealer, pimp, and badass. Evil was evil and crime was our game. So let's get into the specific lethal collaborations chronologically between the Mexican Mafia and Aryan Brotherhood. Soledad State Prison, Central Facility, 1968. It all begins here at Chole, the Spanish nickname for Soledad. I had a tia named Chole. This was my aunt Soledad. As a kid, I always wondered why they called her tia Chole. When I got to Chole in 1970, I learned the true meaning of that moniker. True story. On November 13th, 1968, inmate Jimmy Tremblay was stabbed to death in his cell by Mexican Mafia members R. Chavez from Temple Street and Gabriel Little Sluggo Castañera from Eloyo Maravilla. Their crime partner, who actively participated in this drug-related homicide, was Aryan Brotherhood member William Snake Titman, the first Native American AB member in their ranks. For history buffs, this is the first official homicide, with many more to come, in which the EME and AB worked together. To confuse investigators and throw off the time of death, they got somewhat creative at the crime scene. Little Sluggo arranged the body by propping him up with pillows and blankets, wiping the blood from Jimmy's head, and then they placed a beanie cap and positioned him with a set of earphones over his ears. When I tell you that taking someone out in prison was routine, like brushing your teeth, I'm not trying to impress you. For a prison gang member, this was considered normal, required activity. Most homicides committed behind bars are well known through the convict grapevine, and most of them went unsolved, what were called DA rejects. Without incriminating physical evidence or eyewitness testimony, local prosecutors simply felt they could not secure convictions. Soledad State Prison Central Facility, 1970. On November 11th, 1970, Mexican Mafia member Manuel Tati Torres teamed up with Aryan Brotherhood members Ronnie Perrin and Richard Bear Clemens to stab Bob Harkins to death. This was the second time the EME and AB collaborated on a prison murder. A mirror image of each other, EME and AB members forged a mutual respect, and each group was comprised of the creme de la creme from inside the California prison system. Mexican Mafia and Aryan Brotherhood members were very proficient in hand-to-hand combat, and we found creative ways to manufacture, conceal, and access weapons. Embracing the ultimate warrior mentality in our respective cultures, anything that fell short of a 187 was considered unworthy of conversation. 187 is the California Penal Code citation for murder. A prison assault that did not result in a fatality was an attaboy moment, maybe good for a few minutes of praise, but quickly forgotten and viewed by us extremists as an incomplete job, undeserving of a notch. We often joked about how many notches or kills someone had under his belt. A notch, in Western lingo, was the equivalent of a kill. Just like the East Coast mob guys using the term whacking someone, similarly, when we use the word whack, it meant taking someone out. Today, I cringe when I hear youngsters uttering that word in conjunction with a simple assault. I whacked this guy, or I whacked that guy, or I whacked many guys, would make you think this guy has some notches under his belt. But then you find out he's referring to just touching up someone. I know, it's all sick stuff. Once you delve into a specific event, being familiar with the true results of an assault ultimately clarifies and reconciles the applicable meaning ascribed to whacking that person. Here's another misconception. I must respectfully disagree with those who use sociological terms to characterize that the forming of the EME and AB was a means of protection from other inmates. Ask any prison guard or convict who has experienced the dynamics of prison existence. The exact opposite was true. It was the inmate population who needed protection from the Mexican Mafia and Aryan Brotherhood. If this characterization sounds like arrogance, that's exactly what it is. No one epitomized this extreme attitude and complete disdain for an adversary more than Mexican Mafia member Martin Vargas, also known as Queto. At 6'2" and 260 pounds, Queto was a corn-fed dude and was always an ominous presence. Like many prison gang members who were confident and comfortable in their skin, he carried himself with supreme arrogance and contempt of many, especially his enemies. One day at San Quentin, as the afternoon lockup was underway, Queto ascended the stairwell heading to the 5th tier, where he met a black inmate, snatched him from the front collar with one hand, spun him around, and tossed him over the railing. Somehow, Wayne Early, the name of his victim, survived despite 2 broken legs and other physical issues. Queto and Barry shared an intense racial hatred for blacks. Besides being homeboys and crime partners, hating on blacks for them was just like another hobby he and Barry shared. His Aryan Brotherhood sidekick was also known as the Red Baron. From prison terrorists, Queto Vargas and Barry Mills would hook up to terrorize the outside. More on these two later. The Mexican Mafia and Aryan Brotherhood produced some of the most violent deadly, treacherous, and predatory inmates from the California Department of Corrections. The EME and AB pride themselves in being able to function independent of each other. Despite being allies and partners in multiple crimes, they often functioned without the assistance of one another. Each group preferred to take care of its own business rather than share the glory resulting from successful violent confrontations versus prison rivals. Neither group relished the prospect of the other stealing its thunder, although many mutual hit or execution missions would occur through decades of turmoil, which is the express purpose of this episode. A classic example of one group working completely independent of the other occurred on January 13, 1970, on the O-Wing Adjustment Center exercise yard at Soledad Prison. Members of the Black Guerrilla family and the Aryan Brotherhood clashed during the exercise period while Mexican Mafia members participated in a game of handball. CDC Officer Opie Miller shot BGF members Cleveland Edwards, Alvin Miller, and W.L. Nolan to death. As bullets ricocheted on the yard, EME members were oblivious to the confrontation taking place next to them. Engaged in a hotly contested match, EME's Joe Colorado Arias from Colton and Ray Cabezon Guerrero from Eloyo Maravilla continued their game. According to Colorado's account to me about that incident, Colorado claims he jumped over the fallen body of inmate Edwards in pursuit of a handball, and they continued playing for several minutes. Was Colorado blowing smoke or not? I don't know, but according to Buzzard, Chuco, and Harpo, 3AB guys, who were dead in the mix of that brawl, the fellas were indeed playing handball while the shots rang out. When the carnage ended, the surviving black inmates argued with prison guards about their wounded and dying comrades, about taking them off the yard to the nearby prison hospital. AB members Robert Windecker, aka Chuco, and Billy Harris, also known as Buzzard, were involved in the yard altercation that day. Buzzard was shot in the groin area and suffered the loss of a testicle. Months later at the San Quentin Adjustment Center, I blessed him with the nickname One Nut Buzzard, which he proudly acknowledged among the EME and AB circle of convicts. One thing I can tell you from conversations we had following that dark day, not one Aryan Brotherhood member I talked to about that incident, not even Buzzard or Chuco, were in agreement with what Officer Miller had done. And I'll tell you why. There is no glory derived when your enemy combatant is taken down by a cop's bullet. In the next couple years, the lives of many officers were taken by the BGF. This is a tragic example of how a racist sergeant, we called him Mad Dog Maddox, an equally racist gunner, Officer Opie Miller, would be directly responsible for the killing of many of their comrades, plus one judge, but that's another story for another time. No matter how much you want to take out your gang rival, there is no warrior's sense of accomplishment to see a police officer or prison guard doing the job that should be rightfully yours to complete. That was indeed a dark day at Soledad Central. The routine madness continued. The EME hated on the BGF did likewise on the AB saw red whenever they saw black, and the short-lived peaceful coexistence between the EME and Nuestra Familia was shattered at San Quentin in a dispute that arose there, and two non-fatal assaults, one by each group, took place and kicked it off. Chino Palm Hall, 1972. On April 21st, 1972, AB member Fred Snake Eyes Mendron and Donald Hale stabbed NF member Fred Mosca Castillo to death on the Palm Hall unit of Chino Men's Prison. Although the AB had a stake in the animosity that existed against a common enemy, the hit was ordered by AB member Tank Noah as a favor to EME's Nico Velasquez. This homicide is often described by many as the killing that sealed the pact between the EME and AB. Although this sounds sexy and dramatic, that relationship was already in place. This was the third prison murder in which the two linked prison gangs acted as co-conspirators. Sierra Conservation Center in Jamestown, 1972. Confiscated prison documents, group photographs, greeting cards, kites, and letters repeatedly confirm the criminal and personal relationships between members of the Aryan Brotherhood, also known as the Brand, and the Mexican Mafia. From our mutual enjoyment of reading Louis L'Amour books, also referred to as shit kickers, in our extended confinement cells, these books inspired Western jargon. We often refer to each other as gunslinger and saddlepard. Two saddlepards found themselves on the same trail on June 28, 1972, at the Sierra Conservation Center in Jamestown, California. EME's Nico Velasquez and AB member Robert Blinky Griffin teamed up and stabbed inmate John Taylor to death in the prison dorm, marking the fourth prison murder by these two groups. The incidents I am sharing with you are only those that were common knowledge amongst the EME and AB guys. Obviously, there were more that cannot be incorporated into this episode, but I'm sure you are getting the picture. DVI, Dual Vocational Institution, 1972. The fifth EME and AB murder collaboration took place on July 3, 1972 at DVI. A Mexican Mafia member, Martin Queto Vargas, hooked up with his Fresno homeboy and Aryan Brotherhood member, Barry Mills. Both men walked into the chow hall where they had already identified several Nuestra Familia members standing in the chow line. They walked directly to them and began their attack. When it was over, Jesse Castro, aka Bozo, was pronounced dead at the hospital and two others were injured. This took place one day following the stabbing murder of NF member Gonzalo Lopez, aka Güero, by MA member Richard Resendez, also known as Baby Boy, from 155th in Compton, inside the DVI day room. These events are chronicled in more detail in the book The Last General Standing, written by former NF member Fig from Hayward. On September 6, 1972, Nuestra Familia shot caller Julio Lugo was stabbed to death at Soledad State Prison by Aryan Brotherhood member Michael Mickey Manier. Although there were Mexican Mafia members at the Soledad North facility, the hit on Lugo was not a collaborative effort. Mickey undertook this assault on his own, and the NF retaliated that same day by killing an EME associate named Thomas Oropesa, aka Flaco from Artesia. The EME-NF War of 1972 was already underway and continued throughout the prison system. The BGF had already aligned with the Nuestra Familia, and the AB and EME were also working together. Soledad State Prison Central Facility, 1972. You would think a sacred holiday would be a time to pause. Gang warfare was consistent in one regard. It was literally unpredictable. It was Christmas Day, December 25th, 1972, and Soledad Central Facility once again became the scene of another Mexican Mafia AB joint venture. Shortly during and after breakfast, D-Wing and E-Wing erupted into violence, resulting in the stabbing deaths of two Nuestra Familia members and the non-fatal stabbings of two NF associates who battled with EME and AB members. This would be the final event of the 1972 war between the EME and NF. It followed the gang murder of EME's Rudy Cheyenne Cadena, which occurred at Chino Palm Hall on December 17th, 1 week prior. This is the scene that was portrayed in the movie American Me. Because there is no statute of limitations for certain crimes, I can only tell you that I was detained and charged with one of two murders along with Arthur R. Chavez and Robert Nego Cabral. Because there was alleged to be blood on my pants that matched one of the fatal victims, I became a suspect in the murder of Frank Villalobos, aka Cisco from Fresno. Pablo Najera, known as Paul from Stockton, was the second NF victim. EME member Larry Huesos Gallegos, AB members Richard Hirth, aka Buffalo, and Robert Bogus Bob Patton were charged with Paul Najera's homicide and the stabbing assaults of two men who survived. I was ultimately exonerated and transferred back to San Quentin, my old home. This would be the sixth and seventh murder in which the AB was involved as co-conspirators. After the EME-NF War of 1972, the EME and NF were separated by the CDC and the EME focus would shift to the Black Guerrilla family. Najera was murdered and Garcia was stabbed in Soledad Central's G-Wing at approximately 8:30 a.m. Detained as suspects were brand members Richard Buffalo Hirth, Robert Bogus Bob Patton, and EME member Larry Huesos Gallegos. Because the suspects were not housed in G-Wing and thus out of bounds, they were considered immediate suspects. The first trial took place in March 1974, but ended with an acquittal for Bogus Bob Patton and a hung jury for Buffalo Hirth and Huesos Gallegos. A second trial took place in June 1974 that would have a different outcome. Joe Benny Garcia from San Jose, one of the surviving victims, testified for the prosecution, providing the details of the murder. Gallegos' fingerprints were found in Garcia's cell. On June 28, 1974, both Buffalo and Huesos were convicted of second-degree murder and assault by life termers. They requested and received immediate sentencing. Both received 5 years to life for the second-degree murder conviction, but this sentence was suspended until they served out the stiffer penalty for assault by a life termer of a minimum of 9 years on new life terms. These men would never be released. Buffalo would be killed by his AB brothers in the 1980s, and Huesos Gallegos is still incarcerated today at the age of 78. He was initially committed to the CDC on April 14, 1967. This means he has been incarcerated for 58 years. San Quentin State Prison, 1974. On December 19, 1974, two coordinated and almost simultaneous incidents occurred inside San Quentin. On the lower yard, Mexican Mafia and Aryan Brotherhood members attacked the Black Guerrilla family, resulting in several BGF injuries and one fatality. Newly recruited Mexican Mafia member Black Dan Barrela from White Fence was charged with the murder of BGF member Truman Nichols. AB member Eddie Horton was charged with assaulting a black inmate with a hatchet. Don't ask me how they got a hatchet into the prison, but they did. Within minutes of these attacks, 3 BGF members were targeted inside the prison's south dining hall, resulting in the death of 1 BGF and 2 injuries. I was charged with the murder of Arthur Harris and the non-fatal stabbing of Gary Zaribu Davis. This would be the 8th and 9th homicides in which the Mexican Mafia and Aryan Brotherhood joined forces versus an adversary. Controlling black market prison activities has always been an overriding desire and motivation of these groups. Once it became common knowledge the EME and AB were partners in crime, and the NF and BGF enjoyed a similar relationship, it became apparent to the inmate population and prison staff they were witnessing the early stages of long-lasting organized criminal relationships. The EME and NF utilized La Raza and ethnic pride as a ploy to unify their regional Hispanic gang constituents from Southern and Northern California. They referred to this galvanizing propaganda narrative as la causa, or the cause. Playing the race card was supposed to appeal to an inmate's sense of ethnic pride. Behind bars, everybody played that game. As time went by, racial polarization became even more profound. Today, it is definitely used to instill loyalty and submission to the prison gangs, who wield enormous power inside prisons. The inside controls the outside, something I always said. Similarly, the AB embraced the white racist ideology and labeled it white pride. Once considered the least of the three ethnic groups in terms of strength, white inmates are a force to be reckoned with inside the prison system today. The BGF was all about power to the people and hating on whitey. In the end, it was all about organized crime as we were chasing the same thing: power, control, status, and the almighty dollar. They became nothing more than modern-day pimps and dope dealers. In early June 1976, AB members Barry Mills, Daniel D.C. Kavanaugh, and Billy Buzzard Harris were out on Broadway having paroled. The Baron's Emmett crime partner, Martin Queto Vargas, had also paroled. Barry Mills, D.C., and Queto traveled to Lake Havasu, Arizona. From there, they went on a robbing spree, were apprehended, and it was Buzzard Harris who rolled and testified against his AB brothers and Queto. On December 30th, 1976, Barry was convicted of bank robbery and he asked for immediate sentencing. Barry received a 20-year federal sentence. He was housed at San Quentin awaiting transfer to the feds. After hooking up on the streets and robbing banks, Queto and Barry were again reunited inside prison walls, this time in the Federal Bureau of Prisons. Barry Mills went on to become a high-ranking member of the AB's Federal Commission and passed away on July 8, 2016, one day after his 70th birthday, at the ADX Supermax prison in Florence, Colorado. Serving a life sentence, Barry was a perpetrator of several murders in federal prison and responsible for sanctioning dozens of other hits during his tenure. On January 25, 2016, Queto walked away from an Arizona federal facility and remains free. Queto had already pulled away from his Mexican Mafia brothers and was no longer functioning as an active member. Another example of Mexican Mafia and AB criminal cooperation occurred in a $39,000 Thousand Oaks Bank of America heist undertaken by EME's Adolph Champ Reynoso and AB member William Puppet McKinney. Both men were eventually apprehended, tried, convicted, and sent to federal prison. After his Aryan Brotherhood brothers put it up for a vote, Puppet's journey in life came to an end on January the 8th, 1993, when he was taken out by his AB brothers in the feds for getting too vocal, disrespectful, and too ambitious. Champ became the Mexican Mafia's #1 boss inside the feds, the head of their commission, and his life also concluded inside a United States prison. He was in an outside hospital when he checked out. Champ passed away on November 18, 2018, at the ADX Supermax prison in Florence, Colorado, from issues connected to a lifetime of drug abuse. The body can only take so much. The collaboration between La EME and the brand was totally based on power conflicts and never about racial philosophy. In this photo, you see a mixture of AB and Mexican Mafia. You see Barry Mills wearing the beanie. You see Gabby to his left, Gabby from Florencia. We just happened to be brown. AB guys were pale-faced guys, and our adversaries were shades of brown and black. Something else you should know. The fact that Joe Morgan's ethnic background was Caucasian had very little to do with the established alliance between the Mexican Mafia and Aryan Brotherhood. This association was solidified through the tumultuous 1970s and continued on the outside. Several members collaborated and engaged in numerous bank heists and ongoing criminal conspiracies. This alliance enhanced the power of both prison gangs exponentially. The California factions of both the Mexican Mafia and Aryan Brotherhood are steeped in decades of history, and this bond carried over to several federal prisons throughout the country. That is another story. Today, their connection is firmly rooted in history and solidarity inside the Federal Bureau of Prisons, where EME and AB members enjoy the freedoms and privileges of being housed in many prison populations with less restrictive measures. Each group has plenty of gang-related business on their plates, but they have assisted each other by murdering inmates the other group could not get to. I will deviate once again from the collaboration events and take a quick scenic detour to touch upon an incident of interest that resulted from the EME-AB relationship. On October 13, 1980, Aryan Brotherhood member Stephen T-Bone Gibson was murdered on the Chino Palm Hall AB-MA yard. T-Bone was killed because he was making derogatory comments about the Mexican Mafia, but it was not the EME that killed him. It was his own brothers that punched his ticket. T-Bone and Blinky and other members of the Aryan Brotherhood were housed in a unit that shared an exercise yard with the Mexican Mafia. This, according to the prosecution. EME leaders approached the brand members about the disrespectful comments made by T-Bone and demanded satisfaction. Some of the EME mobsters present at the time included Joe Morgan, Benjamin Topo Peters, and Ralph Vito Rodriguez. Blinky agreed with the Mafia that T-Bone had to go. Later at the murder trial, the prosecution also maintained that it was Blinky who approached the other Brotherhood members at Palm Hall and solicited their vote on whether T-Bone should be murdered. The membership agreed and T-Bone was placed in the hat. According to prosecution witnesses, T-Bone was seated at a table playing pinochle with several other inmates, including Butch Pappin, Bob Schmidt, and Blinky. Junior Snyder was standing behind the table. Blinky and Junior then each pulled out a knife from lunch bags. Blinky walked behind T-Bone, placing his left hand on his shoulder and reached around with his right hand and cut T-Bone's throat from ear to ear. Junior then stabbed T-Bone approximately 3 times in the back. Both men were tried and convicted, but appearances at court provided opportunities for escape attempts. Today, a preponderance of the active Mexican Mafia and Aryan Brotherhood members who are in the prison system are doing all day, a convict term that means life in prison. Each controls a quantity of inmates, whether housed in California, federal, or out-of-state prison facilities. Each conduct very lucrative business from the inside. They oversee criminal facilitators on the outside for the sale and distribution of illegal drugs. What their mortal rivals have been unable to successfully accomplish, or the prosecutors who have sought to execute them through the use of capital punishment, there is a much more brutal nemesis of theirs who can boast wholesale deaths of Mexican Mafia and Aryan Brotherhood members. Without exception, most of these career criminals are longtime substance abusers, with heroin and meth being their predominant drugs of choice. As a result, it stands to reason that cancer, hepatitis C, liver diseases, heroin overdoses, and other drug-related issues are by far the number one cause of death for these EME and AB guys. That is their Grim Reaper, so to speak. At the end of their journeys, awaiting these men are premature death, life in prison, and a wretched life filled with misery. Please consider these bleak prospects when entertaining the notion of pursuing a life of crime. The results do not equal the investment you make in that life. It becomes an exercise in futility. May the good Lord touch these men in their confinements and save their souls before they check out. Thank you for viewing this episode. Good night, and God bless you.